All right, welcome to today's episode of the Australian Lawn and Garden Podcast. This is the live event that we had from our Brisbane leg of the National Podcast Tour we went on this year. It's taken me 5 months to get this out. Why? Because this was the craziest event that we did. Just about everything went wrong. And I feel subliminally that wanted to forget that the organisation, at least, of this event happened. The recording was great. The people who came were great. But we had so many things go wrong. It was ridiculous. First thing that went wrong was the lady who was the manager of this place, 2 days before the event was to happen, had a family emergency and left the country. 1 day before the event, a brand pulled out. The day of the event is the worst weather you've seen for a long time. And what ended up happening was half the people who had booked tickets didn't even rock up. The weather was that bad. It ended up as well that one of the guests, Lenny Lawler, on the day, a couple of hours before the event went ahead, called me up. Actually, no, I sent him a message, and he'd forgotten the date. Even though he'd posted about it a week earlier, he'd forgotten the date. And he was 3 hours away and couldn't make it. So we'd lost the manager, we lost the brand, we lost half the audience and one of the guests, all within about 2 days of each other. Then we started recording, and of course, because we didn't have the manager, we didn't know really what we're doing with the setup, and the microphones started failing. And anyways, but what entailed was fun. We got some good questions for the small crowd that did end up rocking up. It was good fun. And anyways, without further ado, here is that.
Magic rounds. Great spectacle if you're a sports fan. Terrible idea if you're a turf manager. So how many games have you getting? Was it 3 days? Four nights? 4 days?
Well, traditionally it's been 8 over 3. So for those who aren't, was everyone aware of what Magic Round is? Yep. So this year it was 8 men's matches, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but the NRL in their wisdom decided to put Women's State of Origin on Thursday. So we had 9 in 4 days. And unfortunately, Brisbane's weather was not as a typically beautiful winter weather in May. We ended up having 19 mil of rain on the Thursday and 2 on the Friday. So we were pretty ugly and wet Thursday, Friday. But the weekend itself was actually pretty nice. So we got through it really well. And we didn't have to replace any turf on the field of play. I wouldn't have any injuries related to the field. Well, actually no injuries out of the weekend at all, other than Karen Munster when he got shot by a sniper from the grandstand. But other than that, it was, really, really good weekend. And, the Rugby League Players Association I met with every day, just wanting to know about the hardness, the traction on the field. The NRL were really happy and really pleased with the outcome of the weekend.
Right, so if you've got turf questions, think about them, chuck them to Matt.
Before we start, I just want to say to Matt that do I speak with him about maybe suing with sore knee, back left-hand corner, Snapcom Stadium? I think it was maybe 2004 or something like that. Like, is that what Pink for your time?
Way before my time.
Right.
You're a marvellous thing, Matt did.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
So your story, we did your podcast earlier this year, and I genuinely, if you haven't heard the podcast with Dennis, I have not had as many messages back after a podcast that I had with that, with people saying, what an amazing story. I'm going to tell it very briefly, and people could ask their questions to follow what up.
Yeah, and when I say no questions off them, but honestly, like this is about, like, I'm putting myself out here in regards to, like, there's no point holding back. If you've got a question, you might as well ask it. I mean, I'll answer it as honestly as possible. It's like, I've got nothing to hide in regards to anything that's been happened in my life or whatever. So yeah, if it's football related or if it's grass related, landscape related, and selling houses Australia related, then I'm more than happy to answer whatever question that comes my way.
And I think that's what people love about, because people feel, and we talked about this earlier today, that people on television, you get your Ellen DeGeneres who are great on TV, and then the scandals come out and they're like, oh, they're not the real people, the real deal. And but it seems like, and the children do a really good job behind stuff. That's actually a genuine human being, and you're Wendy as well, and
I went into the television game thinking that it was going to be quite fickle, and really cutthroat and ruthless. I definitely didn't feel like I would come out of it with then 2 ready-made best friends in Wendy and Andrew. And it's been a really unique experience, and one that's filled a really big void in my life since playing team sport. Like if you're involved with a great team, whether it be a team of 10 or 3, like if you enjoy each other's company and you're all sort of pushing forward to one sort of goal, it's a pretty amazing thing when you actually get to that goal. And then once that leaves your life, like you constantly trying to search it. And I was trying to search for that. And then Selling Hazards Australia came in, and it's a real team environment. Like it's a good spot, you know, if we're behind, the cameraman will put the camera down and he'll help lay turf or he'll help move mulch or anything like that. So it's filled a very big void that I had been struggling to find since leaving Tom Sport.
And we talked about this when you were at the City Light, Ben. So we talked a bit about behind the scenes of stuff I didn't touch on, though, which I think is really interesting. Is we touched a little bit on it, but if you don't know the show, basically what happens is people who are struggling to sell their house will come and they'll contact the show and they'll say, you know, I'm getting offers of 800, I need 1.2 million, and I've got, in some cases, $30,000 or $40,000. And Dennis and Wendy use that budget, and often what happens is the inside is so dilapidated, Wendy's got to use 30 and you're left with 10.
Yeah, I'm left with kind of wrong.
And what I love about that is it's realistic, and it's actually what people go through. And we had some high and mighty, fancy, landscape designer wankers like Ash from Ashley James Gardens. He was a friend of mine, by the way. I'll follow that one. Yeah, tongue and chin. No, we get these really fancy Instagram things, and people are like, "Oh, that's so beautiful," and then it's like, "Oh, that's $600,000 or something like that."
Yeah, I think a thing that I've got a landscape business based in Brisbane. It's really quite. I've never advertised. It's been going for 10 years. I've got no signage on my cars. It's just been. I've been lucky enough to be able to just word of mouth, just keep getting through and getting work. So, and I try to pride myself on the fact that I do my work as if I was going to pay it at my place. Like, so if I was going to pay this something, I want it done properly. So therefore, if they're paying me, you got to do it properly. And so that's the approach that I've taken with that. And I know that some landscapers, you know, you can tell them one brief and they end up about 5 different sort of turns and veers off, like to what you've actually originally started off with. So now with my design approach, I almost... And it's quite ugly, but I'm almost like go to them straight away, go, like, what's your budget? Because if you don't know the budget, like you can, you know, they might say, oh, I want a pool and whatever. And it's like, oh, yeah, that's great. But then you start doing the pool, it's like, oh, that's not in the budget. So you're almost better off just going, what's the budget? And then what do you want in there? And as soon as they go, oh, the budget's like 50 and we want a pool and we want a special, I go, nah, I'm not going with it. So you've almost got to then try and start the approach and you don't lose them, but you go, all right, you can get in the pool, but you're going to have to do that down the track. So if we create a good foundation so that, you know what, where you've got that pool or where you want that pool, we still got to maintain that we've got some form of access to maybe get in there and do there. And then that maybe needs to be a lawn area first up. And then they might have that lawn area for the first 3 to 5 years. And then all of a sudden they've got some more money and then they can dig the pool. You don't lose the client, but you actually build a foundation that's going to work for the future landscape that is part.
I'm going to pass the microphone to Conrad. I've got one more question for you.
Yeah.
Conrad from Vault Mowing, by the way. Thank you, Conrad. My next question for you is when or what is your memory, because this will be so random for all the contractors, of the worst underquoted job you've ever done? Because we've all done them.
I think I quoted, it was just going to be a really simple, it was about a 10 or 12 meter, like 400 high retaining wall. All of a sudden you go in and then it becomes more, and then, we'll just do that. Yeah, okay, that'll be all right. Well, I can just sort of sort that. I'll do that at the same time. The $4,500 quote that I'd got, I think it cost me like $6,500 or $7,000. And I was just like, okay, that's mine, that's done. And I walked away and just went, I'm never going to do that again. I'm never going to be like, oh, you know, I can do that while I'm going. I can just do that. And I did it quite, and it was, you know, the variations didn't go in. And then at the end of it, I just said, oh my God, I've just cut myself out of close to $4,000. So, but I learned my lesson early. And with the big jobs, it's bloody hard. Like, there's so many things that you've got to factor in. Time, labor is the hardest part to factor in a quote. Materials and everything they've got prices, so you can do that. Whereas sometimes things just take longer to use. So the last couple of big jobs that I've done, I've literally had been like a cost plus 20% type scenario. We're on lose, so it's like the quote happens and it's transparent. You give them all the costs and then you had your margin on and it's done. And lucky enough, I've been able to get away with a couple of like $300,000-$400,000 jobs in the last couple of years that have agreed. So it's been a good learning curve.
I'll touch on that a little bit more, but does somebody have a question that we're ready for now? Hands up if you do. So I told you, as long as the first one takes a while. Oh, we've got bang, bang. Tom's over there. So Tom, we'll come to you in a second. What do you think if you're going to a client now and you want to start from scratch, say a new build, and they want something not one cheap, not super expensive, but what does it really cost, you think, these days to do a full landscaping package that's reasonable? You know, like if it's not the best thing you've ever seen, we're talking a smaller block, because I think this is one of the things that probably will have a problem in your industry is the expectation is just way off.
Yeah, it is. Look, over a period of time, I've worked out that if you're just, as a guide, new build, if the new build is 600,000, like you need a minimum of close to 10% for a decent landscape. You can probably get away with about 6 or 7%, but you're going to end up with smaller plans and stuff like that. Whereas if you really factored in, like if you were going to really price properly and get a proper landscape done with your house. I mean, let's face it, the outside of your house is the biggest room of your house. Like it's the first thing that people see. And I'm not saying that just because that's my industry. If someone doesn't like the house from the outside, they're not really going to go inside. That's my argument to Wendy all the time, but actually doesn't seem to play. But either way, I reckon if you want a really good landscape package on a new build, you're looking at 20% as a guide of your build cost.
So 100 grand on a
yeah. If you've got a 600 grand build, then you're looking at 120 or 100. Yep.
Yeah. So on the other hand, to what Luke said, instead of what was the worst job, what was your best job? So that might not be the most preferable, but maybe it was this customer.
I've had two really good jobs lately. I had one in Daisy Hills, which was a really high end. I've got some photos of it, and just the transformation from when we turned up, like it was an absolute, like you could have sworn it was a tip. It was the builder had left. I think we cleared out in boxes alone, like, and I tried to put them on Facebook Marketplace and everything. We cleared out, I think it was 63 square meters of like porcelain tiles, just standard whites and greys, like that you could have almost built 2 or 3 houses with it after it. And we ended up just punching them up with a bomb cat. It was so overgrown at the back, and the builder had just disregarded the whole place. And what we ended up at the end, like, was just pretty incredible. Like, it was amazing. And then I did another one for a builder that I did my trade with, carpentry trade in Clayfield. Now, they bought the house for $7 million, and they spent $7.5 million renovating it. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. And then to come in and actually then compliment that, like, it was pretty intimidating first up, but at the end, it was incredible. It had a big tennis court at the back that had 500,000 litre rainwater tank underneath it, which went into another zone, which then went into filtration, and they had a vertigation in all through underneath their outside outdoor property. They had a guest house. It was pretty incredible. There was no whatever you'd suggested, they were like, yeah, okay, well, let's do that. It was just one of those jobs that the gift. You just went, yeah, let's do that. Let's do this. What do you reckon about this? And it was like, oh, yeah, all right, no problems. Like, I think they had an old swing there, and they said, oh, what do you think that's going to cost to renovate? I was like, oh, I don't know. Honestly, it's old, like probably 2.5. It ended up being $6,000, and they're like, $6,000, yeah, that's fine. Like, and so I did my 20% margin on, and I was just like, this is just like the gift that keeps on giving. So, yeah, that's probably my two biggest ones, like as far as jobs go.
And I was going to ask you, what is the worst job to do on stadium turf? So I would think that lawn colour would be quite nice, quite satisfying sometimes. What's the worst thing?
It's a good question. The worst job to do, probably after a rugby union game, is repair scrum damage. Yeah. Cal, yeah, lower green sand. We do our best work camouflaging. But that's probably the worst one, I guess, after a major event. But in terms of preparing for an event here, probably being on the string line when you're line marking, you got to be pretty onto it. And
Still demo, still.
so Channel 9 games, yes, we do. The question was, do we demo saw the corner posts in? We do. For Channel 9, they have a little cable that runs from the sideline to the corner post for a corner post camp. So that's a bit of a shitty job too. And that was Himalayan. We try to stay away from the sidelines because we do get a bit of advice occasionally, particularly during rugby union matches. Crowd generally get involved and give us a bit of advice on what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong. Why don't you try buffalo? Come on, Mark. Yeah.
Are these sober people?
No. Rugby union, funnily enough, no, there's not many sober people in the crowd.
I can't imagine league being much better.
We do some pre-lights up.
Anything else? We have some for time, please.
How do you safeguard the turf surface, like where you have the big concerts?
Yep, great question. Depends on the size of the concert. So, for example, Pink. Yeah, thank you, Jess. Pink last year we had 3 concerts. So it wasn't last year; it was earlier this year. Jeez, that's how well I'm doing. We had 2 Pink concerts in February, and then one because the first 2 shows sold out really quickly. She came back for a third one in March, and for anyone who saw Pink, she was pretty incredible. One of the advantages of Pink's show was there was no seats on the actual field of play. So that was all just standing room GA in different pits. So if you had a 1A, you were in this section. And it was actually really well done. So the stage itself sits on scaffold. There's basically a hard stand floor that gets laid the day before the bump-in starts for the forklifts, cranes and trucks to drive on. As soon as that's down, generally we're around 1,500 to 1,800 square metres of footprint for that, which is instant kill. That's what we're up for. The promoter generally recovers the cost or pays for that. The rest of the field of play, pedestrian flooring, is laid generally the day before production day, so the day where all the lighting and sound is put in. And that's generally down for 3-4 days. With Pink Theme 2 shows, it was down for 4. But when we've had each year in the past, it's just an extra day. So an extra day on grass, particularly cool season grass, which we were early or late last year. For Motley Crue, Def Leppard and Paul McCartney, we lost a lot of turf cover. But generally the pedestrian floor is there to save grass. If we didn't have it, we would be in all sorts of trouble, particularly Pink Show 1. February 16, we had 235 mil of rain on show day. So you can imagine what the field will look like without pedestrian flooring. So it is a huge cost to put it in, huge labour cost. But without it, we wouldn't be able to, minimise the turf replacement cost. So and I will give you an example. So Pink, leading into Pink shows, we budgeted for and banked on with a replacement stock of turf of 1,800 square metres of replacement turf. 3 days before the Pink stage is coming into the stadium, they decided to send me a new CAD drawing with the new stadium, the new flooring layout. The stage ended up going from 1,800 square metres to 2,550 square metres. So 750 square metres bigger for shows 1 and 2 and 750 metres bigger for show 3, which meant I then had to find 1,500 square metres of ready play sports turf, which with a pretty short turnaround was really difficult to do. So, that was a real tough one.
What was the time difference between the end of the last concert and the start of the next game?
72 hours. We had Pink Show 2. We started bump out straight away. Production flooring was out overnight. The lay towels were gone by sort of 9 o'clock in the morning. And then we would start as soon as we could get gear into the stadium, because it's not just about getting gear onto the field to start. It's about mobilising gear into the stadium from an hour away or 2 hours away wherever the turf farm is. We luckily were able to hold them in a boneyard somewhere nearby and then bring them in. And then it's a real logistical challenge to get them in and out. So 72 hours, so 1 day to cut out the turf and dispose of all spoil out of the stadium. So talking, the 25 dropping dog loads of spoil that goes back to the turf farm and to replace 2,550 square metres of turf. So, and then have it match ready. So the one thing is the replacement turf for one end, and then it's about mitigating the damage or superficial damage on the pedestrian floor, which is it is there designed to protect turf, but there's always going to be superficial damage, there's scarring, and then the first thing we do, not many people know this, but we run a magnet over the field. The first job we do is run a magnet behind the tractor, and we pick up buckets of metal, like R clips, hair clips, clips, money. Name it, we find it.
Is it a profitable job? So it's about 3 wells to the
Yeah, it's not a lot, but no, it's incredible what was written behind, like big truck pins, like tractor pins. They bang into the scaffold, just gets left behind, and you find them. Like you can pick them up. But it's incredible the amount of metal we pick up after a concert's incredible.
Have you ever hit anything and really ruined a cylinder reel? Because that's a bad day.
Yeah, it's a good question. Coins, generally. Pegs left behind for contractors. Yeah, generally coins. They're probably the worst one. We had a bad one a couple of years ago where we literally got our 5 cutting units back from Toro, who just ground them for us. And then brand new set of bottom blades on the mowers, on the reels. And within about 40 minutes, I've got a young fellow in the shed going, we've got an issue. So we had to get Toro back to change the bed knife out of 1D unit. So it was a pretty expensive repair job, considering it only been on the mower for about 45 minutes.
Anything else from the crowd? Here we go, Ron.
In regards to the composites or to transfer application of pref and fertilizers and that.
Yep, we really need to know what we use it.
Yeah, great question, Cal. So generally leading into a concert, we don't put on any nitrogen on the field at all, leading from about 3 weeks out. So no granulars, no liquids. 2 weeks out, we'll start our VGR program. So we use a product called Primo Max, and it's called Primo Max 2 now, which is just a growth regulator. We don't use it to stop the grass growing. We use it at really low rates just to stop it from perspiring into the flooring. And then we also will apply a leaf absorbed fungicide as well, about 3 or 4 days out from the flooring going down. Sometimes that's not possible, logistically possible, just games, stuff like that. But yeah, we certainly will put fungicide on leading in, pretty much just a catch-all fungicide. It'll cover most of our broad spectrum range of diseases. We try to keep the field as dry as possible leading in. Again, for I mentioned think before, we had 235 mil of rain. Like that was a disaster, because what happens is if you've got flooring that sits on top of the turf, yes, it's not sitting directly on the turf. I'm talking pedestrian flooring here, but it just creates this beautiful microclimate to grow disease, root rot. You can melt, and one example I gave before was Motley Crue and Def Leppard. We had 12 out of 16 days where the field was covered between the 2 concerts, and we lost 80% of their ryegrass with it being a short rooted plant. So perfect environment for things to grow, and the grass, the flooring came off, and this looks great, and then 48 hours later it's gone. So can't really plan for that.
You touched on this in the podcast that we did as well, but what is the cost? We talked about when it was Ed Sheeran, where you did the whole stadium, right? You took out the whole stadium. What's the ballpark cost to remove the entire grassed area, and who pays for that?
It depends on if it's just the cost to the business or if it's damaged from hire. So that will, get sorted out by the legal teams between the stadium and the promoter. Ed Sheeran, because he wanted to have his. Did anyone come to Ed Sheeran? Go to an Ed Sheeran concert. So his concert was in the round, and the 95 or 98% of their concerts are all at one end, and then the Ed Sheeran concert is in the round. So basically, the main difference is the entire field becomes a floor for hardstand, or it becomes a hardstand floor. So we knew for 6 months out that was going to be a full field replacement. So 10,374 square meters, and we're up for roughly $150 a square meter now. So you do the maths, it's about 1.6 inches there. Cool. Yeah. And I'm planning that at the moment. So the summer, because we've got a series, and we've got Travis Scott playing at the stadium if he's held in jail by now. mind you, in October. And then we've got a tight turnaround for a Brisbane Brewer A-lead season. And then we're going to carry our ryegrass through. We are for couch grass or Bermuda grass playing surface, and then we oversow heavily throughout the winter period. Unfortunately, there's not a transitional window for us to transition back to couch grass, to carry our ryegrass through until it falls over, which is generally in that early December period. So I've got a sub game earmarked on the 6th of December. I'm praying to the heavens that we don't have a wet early December, because that's when I'll rip out and replace 80% of our field.
Yeah, the questions we got. Just talking this time of year when the grass isn't really growing that much. Yeah, for work we did some really high traffic there as the grass is worn, it's not regrowing. How do you deal with that when you've got games, when you've got high traffic areas like, say, on the Gold Coast? But is there a magic trick to carrying that in a short amount, especially in winter?
It's a great question. Our northern end is very much like that. We have a northern end of the stadium using full shade this time of year. Unfortunately, we can't minimise traffic. We would love to minimise traffic. That's probably the key one, is keeping people off it. Yeah. So we get a bit of a reputation because we always say no to training sessions and captain's runs and stuff like that. Well, unfortunately, we just can't handle it. If we do, we end up replacing turf, and that's at our cost. So we want to try and minimise that as much as possible. I guess the one thing you want to try and do is keep it as dry as possible. I know that's not an easy thing to do, but certainly putting on products that you're not losing money. So certainly a product that's got a lot of biostimulants in it, a root driver. I'd certainly not be putting on any excessive products that are going to cost you a lot of money, but certainly something that's going to keep that end ticking over. Another product to really try as well, which I had really good success with, is gibberellic acid, which basically enhances or elongates the cells in the grass, basically shocks it into life. It's the opposite of a growth regulator pretty much. So couch grasses in winter, my background is on sports fields in Melbourne where we didn't oversow with ryegrass. So you've got this couch grass that's just yellow and disgusting, and then you put an application of gibberellic acid on with a small amount of nitrogen or some iron, really perk things up, and we could really shorten that dormancy period. And then by the time it comes out of dormancy in that August, September period, or December in Melbourne, it's kind of got that carbohydrate already stored in the plant.
Talking about the money side of it, question for both of you, what is now you've got to move your head out of stadium world into home on the world, and you've got to move your head out of TV world into the job. But what is the biggest and bang for the bad thing you can do to improve a lawn as pouring in existence, and not to do something stupid, and to improve a garden and again not do something stupid?
Like my turf was nowhere near good as mass, but for me, it's like you simply aerating and fertilize, like in water is the easiest thing to do for your grass. And I find being proactive with your lawn instead of reactive around super speed is like, as soon as I see something that's like going wrong, it's like, shit, I need to go to Bunnings and end up like too much of a product in something, and it's the wrong product. Whereas if they were proactive and they followed a good fertilization program and herbicides and pests, so forth, and they did that at minimum quarterly through the year, they would find that they would A, save money, and B, get in better position right the way through the year is with their grass. As far as gardens go, for me, the hero of the garden is mulch. Like honestly, you like to be able to keep a good layer of mulch in your garden. A, it makes it look tidy. B, it provides a warmth to your plants as far as their roots go in winter. It biodegrades into the soil, helping soil structure, providing food for your plants. It's honestly, it's a winner. Stops weeds germinating because the sun doesn't get to the soil. So for me, gardens, number one thing for me is mulch. Keep a good layer of mulch up. Make sure you keep it away from your plant base because you're going to get the root rot and all that sort of stuff. But following a good lawn program, and they're so easy to find now. Lawn Pride has like a good system as far as what you want to go. Lawn Solutions Australia have a great program to follow, and they're basic. But if you've in doubt, like ring like someone that is in the know, and it's I find now that most landscape guys are only too happy to share their knowledge now. Like before, I think it was a bit of a secret sort of society, but now it's becoming so much more prevalent. People are liking their lawns and actually have got back to the whole like sitting back and looking at their lawn. And I think people are now willing to share some knowledge. And I think it's such a great thing, like, you know, and there's nothing wrong with knowing what you're going to do, bro.
And Lenny Lawler, who is he here?
Yeah, Lenny would be my go-to. If I was in doubt, generally, like for a lot of years, I've gone to Lenny, and most times I've pretty much got the solution. But there's been some fungicides and things that have happened. It's like, well, I was like to say, you know, Lenny would give me some advice, but like I think a general fungicide, the Vortex 250 or something, it's like. It's quite calm. It's not a strong one. So you just try sort of that weakened bits first and then make sure you test the spot. And honestly, I think that's for me. Proactive is the reactive.
Any you add to that?
Certainly for lawns, we keep it pretty simple. If you can introduce a plant growth regulator program, absolutely. It's the first thing I tell all the people that come into Suncorp to talk about plant growth regulators. We're not about stopping the grass growing. We're about stopping it from stressing. You can play around with rates. I use Primo Max, a plant growth regulator. I'm not endorsing that product at all because there are plenty of really good products out there that do exactly the same thing. But every single week, we put out a plant growth regulator just to keep it under wraps.
So you must do very low application rate.
Yep, 100 to 200 millimetres a hectare. Bugger all.
Cool.
Yeah, just a sniff. Just a little bit in with our foliar fertilisers, which, you know, we put out. Sorry, who said that? Absolutely. Yep. Yep, because all we're doing is increasing tillering, increasing density, and if you're thinning your grass out, it's a great problem to have. Green is good, brown is bad. That's a motto I live by. But the other one too, around fertilising, chalk manure, dynamic lifter product like that, has so many goodies in there, enriches your soil. And yeah, the other one I'd like to mention as well is a verticutting program as well, because a lot of people just put their grass in and just hack it down with a rotary mower. And then, you know, Queensland, we have a climate where the grass doesn't really go that dormant for a long period. So certainly if we can get in there with a verticutter, not too aggressively, but you'd rather go little and often, and then maybe do at the end of that peak summer period, just before she goes into that autumn period. Yeah, give her a pretty heavy renovate and some sand. If you can't give it fertilizer, you can't give it water, give it sand. Okay.
Touch on that. How many? So I'll give some context. Right, we do lawn programs. Yeah, they're good for what we're trying to do, and we're probably doing. I was saying, even if you combine applications, we might be doing 20 applications a year, which I might be combining. I might be doing, like you said, a plant growth regulator with a fertilizer. I'm adding that as two if we do one application. And that might be on a more intensive routine, so maybe we're doing a once a month application with a couple of doubles up, just like that. How often are you applying a product with anything from the sand to tovracing to fertilizers, blankets, all that sort of stuff? Anything that isn't what people call a cultural reactive, so aeration, mowing, that sort of stuff.
Might shock some people to hear this, but we fertilise our field twice a week. Twice in the last 48 hours has had some form of liquid fertiliser. So we've taken advantage of the rain this morning by putting out a soil-based fertiliser this morning and a penetrant to try and push the water away from that top 50 millimetres. We're twice a week, generally after a weekend, and then the day before the first game of our weekend. A huge wrap for a pigment called Rider, which is a really good, it's a pigment basically. It basically stops the grass from stressing out due to light intensities, but it also gives us a really vibrant green colour as well. I am quite ambitious with quite a few of my tank mixers, have been known to clog up the odd filter. This is why we do a jar test. Everyone does jar tests, right? So if you're in doubt, do a jar test. So twice a week up to, we're up to, I think, 80 sprays for the year at the moment on the pitch.
And you're multi, so my applications included doubling up in multiple products per
Oh, there's 6 or 7 in a through. Yeah.
At times 80.
Are you always liquid?
No, I'll get onto that.
Yes.
No, so we use a lot of liquids because they're taken up by the plant straight away. Straight away, they're taken up within half an hour. They're dry. I get a question a lot around pigments because pigments, there's a bit of a furphy out there that they can rub off on players' jerseys, on their skin, and then they can't get out in the wash. Absolute crap. Never had any issues with that. I have had an issue with green paint though, which was after Magic Round where we had a fair bit of greenery applied to mask the NRL lines, which were marked 7 times in 4 days before the next rugby union game. So for those who aren't aware, rugby union and rugby league have very different line markings. So that was probably the one when I had a phone call from the Auckland Blues who had, no, it wasn't Auckland Blues, it was the Western Force who were wearing a white, predominantly white away jersey, which was going to be auctioned off. And they couldn't auction them off because they were green. And they were asking about the pigment. I said, it's not pigment, it's the green payment. Anyway, granular fertilisers, we apply granular fertiliser anywhere from 250 to 300 kilograms a hectare every month. We apply a lot of nitrogen, a shitload of nitrogen, but I also apply a shitload of potassium in with that. Because we want the plant to be growing, but we also want the plant to be strong. If we don't have any strength in our cell walls with potassium, we've just got long-leggy grass, and anyone can kind of grow long-leggy grass. We need strong, healthy, turgid grass, and we also need a really strong, healthy root system. So sand-based sports fields and lawns, for that matter, are all lacking generally in calcium and magnesium. Sand is great for drainage, but not great for feeding off nutrients. So we're always supplying calcium, magnesium. Whenever we generally have a break in games, we'll put a couple of 100 kilos on. The old school method was put a ton on. And yeah, it's no point because you're never going to get to that magic number of what they need parts per million in the soil. So we're putting on a couple of 100 kilos a month. Sand top dressing, I don't really get much of an opportunity to do. Just this weekend coming is our 3rd weekend off for the year with no events. So we will be putting some sand on the pitch later this week. We're going to verti-mow on Wednesday. So we use an Amazon Proby hopper, which is vertical blades, 3mm blades, which we use whenever we can. Like I said before, if you can thin out your grass, it's a great problem to have. What was the other one you asked about? Aeration. Aeration, we aerate the field every 2 weeks. We vary between short ninja tines, which are only 80 millimetres deep, just to try and penetrate our thatch layer, up to our verti-drain, which are 21 mil tines wide by 240 mil deep. Try and smash it off a bit, but we don't generally do that when we've got rugby union, because rugby union can do that for us.
Do you then, after you've done the big aeration with the big tines, do you then mow top and push whatever you've got back down in as far as for nutrients, or do you then come through and sweep it all up and then put the sand on?
Great question. I probably should have elaborated on that. So because of our event schedule, we very rarely get a window to hollow time yet. So we're generally only solid time purely for water movement and to soften that playing surface. So for those who aren't aware, we test our sports field for hardness every week. It's measured in gravities. It's called a collect hammer as the instrument, and World Rugby have a standard and the AFL have a standard, and you've got to be within a certain range, so between 60 and 90 gravities. So like a road is like 400, like concrete is like really rock hard. A really soft wet sports field or turf area might be 30 or 40 gravities. We generally at Suncorp aim to be between 80 and 100. We clay a lot better when they're dry and firm. That's what the NRL preferred, but the Slater prefers that when the Maroons are playing. Unfortunately, it didn't help them too much in game 3. But yeah, putting this request, and any New South Wales no, good. Good comment. Who was I going with that story? Aeration. So yeah, we aerate every couple of weeks, every 2 weeks. We aerated the pitch this morning, which worked out well because we were meant to get 70 mil of rain today. We only got 15, so I'm not sure what happened.
There's more kind.
There's more kind. Yeah. But generally, what we would do if we get a window of opportunity to do so, we would apply a washed turf sand on the top, brush that in, and then apply our amendments on top according to what our soil test tells us. And that's another really good tip. If you're not sure what's in your soil, test it. Anyone can do it. Send all your sample away to a lab. We test our field for soil and tissue every 3 months. So it's always good to know what's in your soil. I'm a bit old school. I always like to put something in the ground, whereas a lot of these new age, look, I'm not that old, but there's a lot of new age greenkeepers coming through now that are only putting on liquid fertilizer. So now it's going to be taken up straight away, but I love something in the soil. Hope that answers your question.
So you just got about a quarter of a university degree there, which is great answer. Any other questions we got from the audience? Put your hands up if you do have one. We got one. We got Tom there as well.
I'm just curious to know how many people in your team as uncle there is one.
That's a good question. We are a small team. So there's myself and 2 others, which are full-time. I've got a permanent part-time staff member who does 3 days a week, generally backfills when my other 2, I'm on salary. So my other 2 boys have an RDO every Monday. So he's in on Monday, generally Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and event days. And I've got a pool of 4 casual staff which help out on event days. So, so on Saturday night after the Wallabies Springboks test, we collection mowed the pitch to remove debris. And then as soon as the mowers were halfway up the pitch, we then set about washing off the rugby union lines, ready for the league the next day, which is a 2-person job on the hose. And then myself, I was on the stripping machine, which basically we apply that over the line marking paint to remove that. So yeah, it was a pretty small team.
Doesn't seem like much when you relay so much of the concerts.
Well, we don't actually do that. We've got a contract in place. So there's generally, it's a 30 or 35 person job. That's not all laying turf. That's there'll be 6 or 7 at the farm harvesting the turf. There'll be 2 or 3 truck drivers, and then the rest are in the stadium. There'll be a crew on removing the turf, and there'll be another crew preparing the sand. Our staff, my staff, are bringing in the amendments. We're applying amendments wherever the turf's ready to go. And the turf gets laid, and then there's another crew of staff, 2 or 3 others that are on demo saws and rakes, and you're getting it all nice and level. And then we're generally behind them all, touching up and getting it match ready, because generally there's not much time to prepare for a game of soccer. And we all know probably soccer people are probably the most challenging of our horrors, because they love the field to be as flat as its table. Which is a real challenge. The surface to ball interaction is obviously very different between the 3 codes, and soccer being the one where they're most pedantic about. They're probably more pedantic about a visual rather than rugby union could do stuff. They'll play on a car park if they really want to. Whereas
It seems the cleaning number is right. You know what I mean?
yeah, probably want to. We'll just take time.
Okay. This is probably more of a statement. You said you've got 3 weekends off like this, or you've had 3 weekends off this year. It's a shame the Broncos ain't getting have 3 weekends off. They've had a few more weekends off this year. Sadly, unfortunately. And I don't say that with any tongue in cheek, because I actually played for the Broncos, so I do like to see this team.
Like Coach Liz Bangle, and I know it's about a few of my son around for up to think on the martel. The Zinger box.
The highlights from my style, got an ultimate ball mode.
My favourite product for me is I'm probably a PG fan, the branched plant growth regulator. Done right, and it took me a while to get mine right on my grass. Whereas I was actually getting the benefit from it, and I was starting to get frustrated because I'm like, this bloody stuff's so expensive, but it's still growing, and I wasn't putting it on correctly. So that's a pretty big innovative as far as the product quality goes, and it doesn't necessarily put on to stop the growth. Exactly what Matt was saying, it actually helps densify grass as well. And what was the other product? And
That was it, just product.
but most underrated product, I think, is a PGR, and my favourite product is my secateurs, honestly. My Falco secateurs, I won't go anywhere without them. Like the pouch, and they're with me everywhere I go. You can't keep them sharp. It's fine. Yeah, the best things ever.
Look, you can never be too proud to own or have a bag of urea in the shed. But, hey, I'm first to admit we've got we've got a lot of fertilizer. We use a lot of fertilizer. We use our friends over here, Living Turf, provide us with some significant amount of granular fertilizers that are pretty expensive in the grand scheme of things. But I'm never too proud to admit that I've got a couple of bags of $29 urea sitting on the shed, which is 46% nitrogen, in case you just ever need that real kick up the arse. And there's certainly been times in the last 12 months, over summer in particular, where we've gone, it's time to get it out, and $29 a bag, you can't beat that. And fortunately, grass doesn't discriminate. It doesn't know that it's a $29 bag or a $150 bag. It's just going to respond. So you just got to be careful with your rates. But favourite product, it's a very, very, very good question. I might go down the machinery path if I can.
How Dave. He said pros. Come.
Do I have to stay?
Does.
Nah.
Oh, but you can't go past your tire real mate or something like that. Surely there's really some.
Look, we've got a very good association with Toro and have done for a long period of time. But no, it's probably the one green machine that's in my shed, which isn't red, which is our Amazon Profi Hopper, which I think has been an incredible addition to sports turf industry. It was actually brought out in the Netherlands as a parkland style mower that would pick up like bottles and sticks. But used correctly in sports turf, it's used correctly, it can scarify and collect clippings all in one go and vacuum up it. So it's awesome.
I will reiterate probably what I should have said before, which emulates with the team environment, is the best products that I've got is the contacts that I've made so far in the industry, because like my phone, if I don't know something, I've got multiple people that I can call and get advice from them, whether it be turf disease or a plant product or something like that. So the people that I've met like through the industry over a long period of time, that's probably my biggest asset, like as far as to get help from.
That's a really good point, Dennis. And I've had some really dark days in my role because there is a lot of pressure, and it's not nice getting a phone call from I won't name them, a journalist at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning from an unnamed paper called the Courier-Mail, wanting some answers as to why the pitch was shit, essentially, for the night before, without actually realising the backstory of there was a concert and, people... Yeah, they turn up and they don't understand this. The education's never there for that. It's just like turn up and they go to a picture shoot and something's gone wrong. In a role like mine, people kind of have me in the sports turf industry on a bit of a pedestal, and they think, oh, he's bulletproof, But unfortunately, when you get into a role like mine, it is very isolating, because there are those times where, you go home and you just break. Like, you go, well, what do I do? And that's when you call upon your contacts, your mentors in the industry. There was a time there where I ended up getting at my trade school books from the early 2000s and just started reading about, just refreshing and going, no, I'm on the right track. And because there's certainly times there where I have doubted myself, and then you draw upon all of those times where things have been good. And you mentioned before the award we won, and that's not through fluke. It's because we've put a lot of hard work in. There's obviously a lot of educated guesses that go into some of the things you do at times, but we rely on weather, and we are a small team. We do enjoy each other's success, and we get along really, really well. So some of my best mates now are, a lot of my best mates are in this industry and moved up from Melbourne over 6 years ago, and I'd say now it's no coincidence that a lot of my best friends now are Queenslanders. So just wanted to reiterate what you were saying, Dennis, that absolutely a huge asset to have those contacts.
Yeah, it's great. Like the more people you can contact, the better. Like Simon Adamans from Launceston, Australia, for me is like, he's also a great contact when I've got a question. Lenny, God bless you, mate. You're cutting there. If you believe you can contact he's always been good. I think Michelle Didson, like it was soil profiles, I could send her a sample, and she's always great to be able to speak to. There's so many, and I've found that everyone has had willing to help you, like with their experience, and sometimes they've learned the hard way, and they're like, oh shit, I don't want you to go through that whole thing is what I went through, and it can be as simple as, it might not be spider mite, it could be something different, it could be ACs or something. Like it's just, it's so good to be able to call people. So the more people you know, the more people you've got to be able to call, the better off you're getting there.
I was going to say, we've released 111 podcasts, right? And we've interviewed everyone from, you guys to the lawn mowing guys to, there's whatever, a whole range of people. And people with massive followings to people who literally don't have social media. What I found really interesting is I don't think I've met a person yet, except for Professor Jim Prattley, who I asked about glyphosate for an hour and a half. I don't think I've met somebody who I've put on a pedestal who has a kind of arrogance about them that they feel like they know everything. I've not met someone who feels like they know it. I don't think I've met or interviewed somebody yet who has that kind of off-putting feel to them, looking down your nose. And you would think after 100 and something episodes that we would have found somebody by now. The industry is actually so encouraging and people build up. And actually, you coming on the podcast is one of my favorite stories, because we came on 2 days before the quarterfinal game at your stadium at a World Cup. And I actually reached out to you and I said, look, I'd love to have you on. I'm happy to wait to whenever you're ready. And then you gave me a date. And I was like, cool, it's in the middle of the World Cup. And then I looked it up and it's like, you have a game a couple of days later. And it's stuff like that where people, it's like, instead of being, no, I'm the stadium manager of the World Cup. This is the World Cup. The Matildas are playing, and I'm too good for you. And I don't get that from people. It's such a good.
Doesn't get you anywhere.
I was going to say, sometimes it's a welcome break. Also, watch this one go. I'd rather talk about that than worry about the side.
I'll tell the story because the day we had the podcast I don't know if anyone knows the area, but I was pulled over at the BP in Loganholme, and I did the podcast with my phone resting on my steering wheel for an hour and a half. Yeah, I was in it.
Well, honest, it was 2 phones.
Oh, I burnt one. Yeah, I've got 2 phones. One's my work phone, one's my personal phone. I had to keep swapping because my work phone couldn't handle the brightness on the phone being up for the camera, and just yeah. So that was it was pretty.
So this podcast, it's about 5 sections, and you just kept it anyways. Yeah.
No, you're right. Being arrogant and elitist does not get you anywhere in this industry. You'll be quickly found out and spat out the other side pretty quickly. And what I will say is that, particularly in Queensland, I think all of us guys who are in either a golf course superintendent role or golf grounds managers, we're all a phone call away to each other. I've got some of my best friends, golf course superintendents, other grounds managers, racetrack managers. We converse. We talk about our problems. We talk about our successes, because we're all from the same, industry. We've all got the same challenges and the same problems, and we're all trying to have the same end result, really, which is at the end of the day, we're in a service industry for entertainment purposes at the end of the day. So, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Mate, I've met a lot of dickheads.
The industry,
I've been in the industry. Honestly, the industry has been great, though. But during a 40-year NRL career, trust me, you meet a few dickheads.
Go see my weakness.
Yeah. And I thought I would have met more during the television industry. But there's been very few. Actually, there's probably only one person that I sort of I wouldn't say having on a pedestal. But I was really interested and intrigued to try and meet him. It was at one of the actor awards or something, and he was sort of sitting out by himself. And I sort of thought, I'll come over and just say, g'day, and how are you in the industry? And you, by the way, you know Wendy, and I work with Wendy. He was the biggest wanker I have ever met whatsoever. And he's about this high, and he used to be a stripper. I don't know if anyone showed me. But Jamie Jury is possibly the biggest flogger bloke that I have ever met in my life once. And I will never waste another minute of my life like talking to him and ever going. So I think the best bit of advice that my grandfather gave me, I think I was about 10 or 11. He said to me one day, and I had no idea what he was talking about at that stage. He was like, mate, there's going to be a lot of situations in your life where you're going to be in a room full of people. And I was like, yeah, okay, yep. thinking this is going to be some magical piece of information, which it actually turned out to be. He goes, and you're going to look around the room, and he goes, and you're going to try and spot the dickhead. And I go, yeah. He goes, if you ever get yourself into a situation where you can't spot the dickhead, may the dickheads you get out. And I was like, I never wrote. And I've used that now. That's really a long period of time. And thankfully, I haven't had to get out too many rooms because there's a few dickheads on it. So, but yeah, honestly, I think our industry is like really, I've been really blessed with my 10 years in the industry, and I've had so many people that I've been able to talk to, even with Nifkus and Ben and all his crew were down there. Like, it was just such a great party atmosphere as far as that goes, and everyone was like, too willing to be there, and it was just a great sort of vibe going through there. And that's the way I think our industry is starting to turn. We're all trying to help each other. We're all trying to make each other better. And if everyone's better, then prices hopefully can start going up. There's enough work out there for everyone. So I think if we can all, like, as Matt said, like, we can all help each other, we're just going to get more knowledge going in, and it's just going to keep us recirculating around. And it's just going to be better and better for everyone.
Oh, that's a great note to finish on. Why don't you put your hands together?